Hello YouTube! Today we'll be redesigning Brandon, and even though I was excited to show you guys the design, I actually kind of struggled with what I wanted to even do with him as a character. In the original show, he's just kind of perfect. He's just nice and cool. In the last video, I had plenty to go off of since I had all of Sky's flaws to talk about, but this time, not so much. The only thing I can really think of in the first 3 seasons of Winx that Brandon actually does wrong is lying to Stella about his identity, but that's like barely his fault since in the version I grew up with, he is doing it to appease the king and actually putting his own life on the line. But also, like I said in the last video, even though that isn't the case in this rewrite, he tells her the truth very soon after they start seeing each other. The two of them have a healthy, mutually fulfilling relationship, and Brandon is a great partner. He has strong friendships at Red Fountain, and his teammates all see him as someone they can depend on. But all these things revolve around other people. Who is Brandon? Well, I think it's been a while since he thought about it. He's been living a life devoted to another person since he was 10. His father was a pretty high-ranking knight, and when King Erendor decided his son would be a good fit for the prince's gentleman-in-waiting, he was offered a promotion to commander should his son accept the role. Brandon looked up to his father and had dreamed of being a knight himself. They'd even done some training with him as his father's page, so when he found out his father could be an even cooler knight, he was pretty excited. His parents were concerned on whether or not this would be a good change for their son. However, when Brandon and Prince Sky met up for a trial day, the two of them bonded almost instantly, and Brandon went to live in the castle full-time soon after. Luckily, his new position as commander meant that Brandon's father would be spending a lot of time at the castle now as well, meaning that on occasion they would get to see each other in the very early mornings or the evenings if they could find the time. His father would tell him stories about what he and the other knights would get up to on missions and teach him new fighting moves or assess progress he had made with practicing his sword skills, or things like that. As time went on, Brandon was able to see his father less often, though he was still able to visit home on certain holidays or planned occasions. Unfortunately, these times were few and far between, but they were always cherished. By the time of the story, he even has a little sister and a baby brother that he loves very much, but they're always so much bigger when he actually gets to see them again. His mother tells him about them in her letters. They thought it was really cool when he got to be a specialist. Going to Red Fountain was Brandon's idea, though thankfully Sky was just as into it. They were excited to get away from the castle, and Brandon really liked the idea of getting to go fight in tournaments and maybe even real battles. He really had a romanticized idea of what it meant to be a soldier and be in the military, and to him, a specialist is basically a soldier, even if they're technically only going to be specialists in training until they graduate. Another factor that would have definitely gone into his decision to want to become a specialist, even if it was subconscious, is just wanting to get a chance to get away from all of the stuffy bureaucracy of living in the castle and getting some time away from all of those annoying royals. But I guess he couldn't get away from all of them. Brandon and Sky see each other as brothers, and they've always been really close, which might be why he never really realized, or maybe never cared, that he was living his entire life in someone else's shadow. At Red Fountain, Brandon takes being a specialist very seriously, and he's great at it, but still, Sky is leader of the squad. Brandon is a natural at things like hand-to-hand combat, sword fighting, swimming, climbing, even dancing, and he's good at doing what needs to be done. If only he weren't so conditioned to do what he's told and following orders rather than giving them, he would be a fantastic leader. Timmy and Riven would prefer it too, I'm sure. They're both plenty aware of Sky's shortcomings, but they can't ever get Brandon to see them too. Maybe Sky makes a bad call on a mission, or they lose track of their target, or he's late to training. Brandon can't help but come to his defense. They've been best friends, brothers, for years. Then, one day, Stella's telling him some tea, and she mentions calling out Bloom for doing something impulsive and reckless. And hesitantly, he asks for advice about Sky. Sometimes, supporting the people you love means calling them out so that they can change for the better. She also probably doesn't like Sky very much and wants Brandon to see his worth as an individual. After this, maybe he starts spending more time alone, focusing on his workouts since they're like meditation for him, and they're something that can be his thing. All of the specialists train, of course, but Brandon also goes to the gym in his free time, and he enjoys it. That's why I made his first outfit more something that can be worn for a workout. Also, this is the first time I've drawn the outfits Season 2 first and Season 1 second. Usually, I keep the inspiration in the same order, but I felt like this made more sense for Brandon's story. I've always interpreted his Season 2 look as more like athleisure wear, so I used that outfit as inspiration for designing this look, before he knows anything about fashion. In my rewrite, as well as I'm pretty sure the actual show, Brandon and Stella are the first couple to get established. But when that happens, she thinks he's Prince of Heraklion. Brandon's feelings for Stella are what sparked the reveal of the identity swap in my rewrite, since once they go on an actual date, he likes her so much that the idea of keeping up the lie makes him sick. She's annoyed about it at first, but ultimately she thinks it's sweet how broken up he is about it, and reassures him that it's not a deal breaker. She probably makes some stupid joke too. Something I love about them is that Brandon is used to royals that put on a show of being like considerate, noble, and brave. But under the surface, they're actually quite pretentious and self-centered. Stella is the complete opposite. People look at her and see a vain, spoiled princess, but really, she's compassionate, creative, and protective of those she loves. Brandon wasn't as isolated as the prince growing up, and he was definitely a flirt. He was every chambermaid's favorite little guy when he came around. But Stella is the love of his life, and he definitely acts like it. They play their little games, like who can get the most phone numbers at this school function, but they are both completely devoted. As such, she hypes him up like crazy and always offers to take him shopping. I think when he finally agrees, he has a great time, much to his surprise. And he actually starts getting a bit into fashion himself. Hence his second outfit. It would be really cool if Brandon gets her to come to a workout and she has a great time too, much to her surprise, feeling invigorated and powerful. Since Stella isn't a Guardian class fairy, she isn't required to have any combat courses at Alfea, but this is a great way for her to prepare for fights, like narratively. Stella would also take him on vacations to Solaria, and the sheer difference from Heraklion's castle would amaze him in the best way. Solaria is a fun kingdom, and every new part of it he sees, he loves. He's also met both of her parents on separate occasions, and they got along really well. When he addressed King Radius with the severe formality with which he was used to greeting King Arendor, Radius burst out into a deep belly laugh and gave him a very enthusiastic handshake, happy to meet the young man his daughter had told him so much about. And after all of that, I think Brandon would eventually switch his focus from military studies to sociology, or something similar. After traveling, Solaria made him realize how important things like local government subsidization and community organization are in improving quality of life for the general public. Dating Stella would mean finding out a lot of new things that she previously thought were common sense, which would of course just ultimately add to the very long list of reasons he finds her to be completely amazing. I'd like to talk a bit about the specialist design I came up with, since I kind of neglected to last time. So, it's no longer a skin-tight, I guess, spandex bodysuit, but instead more like a racing suit or a flight suit. It's padded, fire-resistant coveralls with a main center zipper and deep pockets in the pants. Students at Red Fountain are given this suit, a pair of basic boots, and a badge that functions as a flashlight. Sky wears the boots issued to him and wears the badge above his left breast as is suggested. However, it's really common for students to customize their uniform, switch out the boots, or wear extra pieces. Brandon wears leather boots and armor that his parents gifted to him after he enrolled, and he pins the badge to his belt, right in the center. When they begin their first semester, students undergo an assessment to determine what kind of weapon would be ideal for them to wield. They can request to be reassessed at any time or ask the results be reconsidered if there's a reason they feel they have a bad match, but it's not very common. Sky still has a kukri, the same kind of blade he uses in the show, a weapon meant for slashing, but he keeps it sheathed as much as he can. Brandon is a heavy hitter, and I almost gave him the same big sword he has in the show. Or maybe some kind of hammer. Eventually, I settled on a spear. He can use it as a big swinging stick, or use it for a more precise hit, or throw it as a range weapon. It's versatile and it has reach, and it's different from any weapon he's trained with before. I also imagine him to be Greek, so I thought the spear would be a nice nod to that, since it makes me think of depictions of ancient Greek warriors. And that's what Brandon is, a warrior. Those two pieces at the top and the bottom of the spear would come together so it can fit in his pocket. And obviously the light/energy/plasma blade deactivates. I do want to keep that sci-fi aspect of specialist weapons, but I'm not really sure how exactly I want them to work. They're very unexplained in the show. I'm sure they're just based on lightsabers and they didn't really think about it too much, but still. Oh, and the fluorescent light-up badge represents the student's authorization to use one of those plasma weapons, since they are trainees. And I was thinking maybe it would even work as a recall button or some kind of location indicator for the weapon. Brandon starts out as the muscle of his team. I mean, that fully extended spear is heavy. But by the end of the story, he would be the team leader, and after graduation, I think he would continue doing work as a specialist, primarily as humanitarian aid or on rescue missions. Then, in a few years, he'll retire from the force and move in with Stella, proposing not long after. Eventually, as king, or king consort, or something, he would work to continue providing help to those in need with relief outreach programs, to both the several yet unnamed kingdoms around that don't have plot relevance, and back home to Heraklion. He always thought he would be committing to Sky's military and leading war efforts, but this is a much happier ever after. So that's Brandon's video. I love him as a character, and I love his romance with Stella. They make me so happy. I really hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please feel free to subscribe. It's a really big help for me as a smaller channel, and I would really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun doing the drawings for this one. I feel like Brandon's looks are kind of inconsistent in the show, so the two outfits for his casual looks ended up really different, but they were super fun to draw. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!